This is the story of Tilly by Frank Peretti. Spring had come again. Same old spring, laughing and teasing. Out past the old gray and purple gravestones of the cemetery, I heard the sound of birds singing with abandon. Everything looked so warm. I should feel so warm right now. But I didn't. I felt cold. My husband Dan and I were walking back to our car from the memorial service of one of the members of our church. I was looking out across the rows of graves, contemplating life and birth and death, when I stopped. "Look," I whispered to Dan. I had noticed a beautiful woman kneeling erect in front of a small, lonely grave, deep in prayer. "Beautiful," I whispered to Dan. I was awestruck. For some reason, a reason that I cannot describe to you, I felt drawn to see the name on the headstone, so I began to walk forward. Dan said, "Kathy, stop." But I said, "I'm not going to disturb her. I just want to see the name." I got closer and closer, and then I stopped. The name, it struck me. It touched my heart. Tilly. I bent closer to see the date on the bottom. There was only one date, only one, 9 years ago. Tilly. Well, we went home and went about our business, but for the rest of the day, I couldn't get that name and date out of my head. Tilly, 9 years ago. That night, I couldn't sleep. When Dan found me at 1:30 in the morning on the couch with tears streaming down my face, I guess he realized that the pain that I had been hiding inside of me for so long was still there, and it had resurfaced for some reason because of that name, Tilly, 9 years ago. Well, Dan finally persuaded me to go back to bed, and I slept. But the next morning when I awoke, I immediately realized that something was not the same. In fact, when I got accustomed to the light that was shining at me from every direction, I gasped. I was not in my bedroom. I was in a beautiful field with tall trees and millions of flowers. Oh, it was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. "It's just a dream, Kathy. It's just a dream," I told myself. But it felt real. I looked around and I noticed a little girl looking at me from a little ways off. She was wearing a white dress and had long brown hair. She looked like she had been crying. I said, "Are you all right, sweetheart?" And she said, "Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. I just wanted to look." "Look at what?" I asked her. And she said, "At you." Well, of course, I didn't know what to say to that. So I said, "What's your name, sweetheart?" And she said, "Tilly." Tilly. "And how old are you, Tilly?" "I'm 9 years old," she said. Tilly. 9 years ago. Well, Tilly and I ended up spending all afternoon together. Once I introduced myself, she asked me questions about my husband, Dan, and our kids. She was a delightful little girl. But something didn't seem quite right. So after a while, I said, "Tilly, are you happy here?" Wherever here was. Tilly said, "Yeah, well, mostly. I want to see my family." "You have a family?" I said. And she said, "Oh yeah, Jesus told me about them." I was delighted. "You know Jesus?" I asked. And she said, "Oh yeah, everybody does. He lives just down the road. I expect he's a very important person because people come to visit him all the time. But he always seems to have time to play with me." "He told me about my family," Tilly said. "They're not here, but Jesus said that they'll come to be here someday, and we'll all be together. But sometimes, I just can't wait," Tilly said. "I want to see him so bad." Well, it turns out that I wasn't the only one who had been affected by seeing the name Tilly on that gravestone. Dan, too, had questions that were running through his mind that he needed answers to. So he went back to the cemetery to see if he could find more information about the name Tilly and that woman we had seen. He found out that the woman's name was Anita Mendoza, and Tilly had been a small baby, not even full term, whose body was burned and scarred. Dan was so confused. He found out the name of the pastor who had conducted Tilly's funeral service. And when he asked Pastor O'Cleary about that baby, Tilly and Anita Mendoza, the pastor seemed to know who Dan was. He said, "Yes, Dan, Anita Mendoza was a nurse at the Family Planning Center 9 years ago." So Dan's suspicions had been confirmed. He didn't try to hold back the hot tears from rolling down his face any longer. The pastor said, "Yes, Dan, Tilly was your daughter. You see, she was still alive after the abortion. She struggled for life for an hour in Anita's arms before she finally died. Anita left the clinic that day, never to return. The pastor told Dan that when he had asked Anita why she still mourns for Tilly at the cemetery every springtime, Anita had said, "Well, if not me, then who will mourn for Tilly? Who will remember her?" Well, of course, I had no idea what Dan was doing at that time. Tilly and I were still having a wonderful afternoon. But I had a question that was weighing on my heart that I needed an answer to. So I said, "Tilly, you said Jesus told you about your family and your mother, and you wouldn't be angry with her because she left you here all alone." Tilly said, "Oh no, you see, I love my mother. I just want to see her." "I think about it all the time," Tilly said. "When I see her, I'm just going to look at her face and look at it until I know it and I'll never forget it. And we'll go for walks and I'll show her all my favorite places and we'll sing and dance and she'll put flowers in my hair." Tilly turned away from me. Her voice broke and her eyes filled with tears. She clenched her fists and she seemed to be pleading with the heavens when she cried out, "Mommy, will you please want me? I've always loved you, Mommy. If only I could have you with me now, I wouldn't long for anything else." "Oh, Tilly," the cry burst from my lips. "Tilly," I said, "I don't know how I'm going to be able to say this." Then Tilly looked at me with her beautiful brown eyes and said, "Mommy, will you please hold me?" I would hear no more thoughts or hesitations or doubts or debates. I opened up my arms and Tilly was there. "Oh, Tilly," I said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me?" And over, Tilly said, "I forgive you, Mommy. Don't cry. I love you. I forgive you." Forgiven. I felt a poisonous, goading spear withdraw from my soul, and with it came a flood of lament and sorrow and anguish that had been in there for so long, but was slowly replaced by a restoration and a peace. Forgiven. "Tilly," I said, "I can't even believe I'm holding you." And she said, "Well, then don't let go. I've never been held by my own mother before." We stayed that way for a long time. After a while, we got up, we sang and danced and went for a walk, and Tilly showed me all her favorite places, and I put flowers in her hair. But after what seemed like a very long time, Tilly suddenly seemed to be aware that something was about to happen. She looked at me and she said, "Mommy, you need to remember something." She continued talking, but I couldn't hear her anymore because she was interrupted by a loud voice that was growing louder and louder. It was Dan, and he was calling me. "Kathy," he was saying, "it's time to wake up." "Mommy," Tilly said, "you need to remember that Jesus, he forgave you long ago. You don't need to be sad anymore." I tried to say, "Tilly, you don't know how much that means to me." But I couldn't because I was interrupted by the voice. It was growing louder and louder. I felt like I was being pulled away from Tilly. "Mommy," Tilly was urgent now. "Mommy, you need to remember that I love you. Life isn't that long, Mommy. You'll see me. You'll come back here and we'll be together and you'll never cry again. I love you, Mommy." Tilly faded from sight. "I love you." I heard one last faint "I love you," and then I woke up in my own bed. That afternoon, Dan and I went back to the cemetery, and we were able to properly mourn for that precious little girl. But despite the mourning, my heart was at peace, a peace that was mine to keep. I was able to whisper the words that my heart had always known. "Tilly, I love you." And all I wanted to do was remember. Just remember my treasure, Tilly.